the key to any game, and there's a lot of stuff that people talk about, and I think you hear Coach talk all the time, again and again and again, the same stuff. But when it comes down to these type of games that have a different level of intensity, being that it's, win or go home, it all comes down to execution.
Hello and welcome in. It's always college football. It's one of our favorite shows of the year. At least one of. We have a lot of favorite shows, I will admit freely. There are so many shows. We love our preview shows. We love our takeaway shows. We love our rankings reaction shows. But some weeks are just better than others. I don't really know what else to tell you. Partly because of matchups. Partly because of what's on the line. Partly because it's rivalry week, so there's a lot of intensity when it comes to making the pick, knowing that you're going to hear about it if you get it wrong. All these other things, like we love our shows and we love our content and we love our listeners. But when you get into the postseason, you got to be at your best. You need to kind of look within. You need to make some tweaks. You need to make some adjustments, and that's exactly what we've done. We are slightly altering our preview shows. We'll still give you all the details. We'll still give you all the information that you need to feel prepared to discuss these games on whatever side you're on. You will probably have all the information needed to make strong arguments against some of my findings. All these things are completely fair and reasonable, but that's why we do it, is for the postseason. This is what we've come to. We have 4 games that we will break down today in detail. We're going to go deep in the weeds. We're going to tell you what could win, why things might look this way for a team against this team, what the pathway to victory might look like for this team against this team, the biggest keys to the game, some of the bigger storylines of the game, the hot topics in the game. So we are going to have some fun today. Before we get into these previews, if you will, just go and subscribe to the podcast. Wherever you get the podcast, it doesn't matter. It doesn't cost you anything. It purely just provides you with more good content. If you like what we do here at Always College Football, we also encourage you to go check out the ESPN College Football YouTube page. There's tons of content, a lot of inventory on there, a lot of great shows, all of them hitting the games from a different angle. Some highlight shows, some debate shows. There's a lot of fun stuff, some hot button topic shows. There's a lot of fun stuff on there for you, regardless of what you're into when it comes to college football debate. I don't even think I've introduced myself just yet. I'm Greg McElroy. If you're new to the show, we do it multiple times a week, and we will throughout the postseason as well. So let's kick things off. Our first college football playoff preview, and it's a Friday night thriller. One of the biggest games of the year. This is where the college football playoff officially opens. The 12-team bracket is set, and we have a rematch, ladies and gentlemen, a rematch that is loaded with tension and history and chaos and excitement. It's the 9th-ranked Alabama Crimson Tide traveling to Norman, Oklahoma to face the 8th-ranked Sooners. The winner, a lot on the line here, the winner gets a date in Pasadena, California on January 1st. Who doesn't want to go play in the Rose Bowl, and who doesn't want to play against the number 1 overall seed? That's the Indiana Hoosiers. This is not just a playoff game, though. It's a bit of a grudge match. And, of course, the first ever college football playoff game that's been hosted in Norman, Oklahoma. You want some home field energy? You want some juice, especially in a Friday night atmosphere? Yeah, you can't put a price tag on that here in December. There's not a whole lot better. As someone that called this Friday night game a year ago from South Bend, Indiana, you don't know what you're about to walk into when you walk into the Palace on the Prairie. It will be unbelievable. So if you want to understand how this game might go, it'd probably be helpful to go back and take a peek at the first time these two teams played. It was just a few weeks ago. And these teams are currently kind of trying to change maybe what they were from that game, because it was in some ways awesome and also in other ways somewhat unwatchable. Oklahoma won that game 23-21. If you dive into the box score, it's kind of a bit of a fever dream, if you will, kind of a statistical anomaly, because Alabama really dominated most of the metrics that would lead to them winning the game from an offensive standpoint, they had 406 yards to Oklahoma's 212. It's nearly, check my math, it's nearly a 2-to-1 advantage. Alabama ran 75 total plays to Oklahoma's 51. That's, check my math, that's 50% more offensive plays run by the Tide than the Sooners. Alabama held the ball for 34 minutes and 28 seconds compared to just 25-32 for the Sooners. That's 10 extra minutes of time of possession, and the 24 extra plays would help you understand that. So the only way you can dominate a game like that statistically in the box score, when you look at the team stats, the only way you can dominate a game like that and lose is if you make a ton of mistakes, or if the other team forces you to make those mistakes. And the box score it's like a 1980s video game where one player had like a cheat code where you couldn't stop him and the other team just kept pressing self-destruct. So that was the big thing. The self-destruct button was the turnovers for Alabama. Oklahoma, their defense and their special teams directly contributed to 17 of their 23 points, 3 critical Alabama giveaways, including what might have been the biggest moment of the season for the Oklahoma Sooners. That was the Eli Bowen's 87-yard interception return off of Ty Simpson on a throw, which pressure was coming off the right side. So here's the critical observation. In a game like this, and in a situation like this, the team that wins the turnover margin wins the game more than 70% of the time. So this is where seasonal context is a bit key, right? Because Oklahoma, as wild as it might be, especially given how they've played the last few weeks, they are 81st in the FBS with a -2 turnover margin. They have forced 13 turnovers this year, which is 94th in college football, but they have really surged since week 10. That was the Tennessee game. They have forced 9 in the last 4 weeks. It's absurd to think just how much better they've been of late in that resurgence and opportunism. And Alabama, on the other side of the coin, they have usually been the perfect program as it relates to discipline and ball security. They're 24th this year in the country with a positive +7 turnover margin. They only have 12 turnovers on the year. So to think 1/4 of the turnovers that they had in the entire season came in that game against Oklahoma. So Oklahoma's win was a little bit of a statistical aberration, but the biggest key to this rematch is possible turnover regression. Can Alabama, statistically in the first matchup, the superior team, can they revert back to its mean of being a +7 team overall in turnovers? Or can Oklahoma, who has been amazing when it comes to creating chaos, can they force another extreme outlier to lead them to victory? Because Oklahoma has been amazing. The amazing thing about it, though, is that Alabama's now played 2 games against Brent Venables in the last 2 years. In both games, Alabama has turned it over 3 times. They're 0-2 in those 2 games. So something worth noting there. Let's start with Alabama's offense. And we'll start with what this group looks like. And we'll, of course, naturally start with the quarterback. You got to focus on the guy at the center of the storm because Alabama's offense has taken some criticism, understandably. But we'll start with Ty Simpson. He's potentially the highest variance player in the entire college football playoff. He's a guy that if you look overall at what the season's been for him, it's been an amazing year statistically. The guy's thrown for 3,268 yards. He's thrown for 26 touchdowns, a 64% completion. He has not been a guy that's turned the ball over whatsoever. He's been amazing. However, there are 2 different types of Ty Simpson from time to time. Against lesser tier competition, against mid-tier competition, he's been a Heisman contender. I mean, sharp, accurate, amazing performance, threading the needle against really tight coverage. He's been against mid to below average competition. Against superstar defenses, against top 15 elite, high-level efficiency defenses like Oklahoma, like Georgia, like LSU, the production has plummeted just a little bit. And in the last 6 games, his completion percentage has dropped to just 58%, and the passer rating has fallen sharply as well. And the flaw is kind of rooted in ball security and decision-making when the process becomes a bit rushed. So, for example, leading into the Oklahoma game, Ty Simpson had a sack fumble in 5 consecutive games. And Kalen DeBoer has even gone as far as to say that Ty Simpson sometimes kind of needs to live with just throwing it away, live with punting, as opposed to trying to maybe do a little too much. He also has, at times, maybe taken a few too many sacks, held on the ball just a little bit too long. He's taken 25 sacks this year. That's 106th in the FBS. And this is a tendency that Oklahoma is going to be gunning for. They are amazing when it comes to that hunt, too. I mean, they have 41 sacks this year. That's first in the country. Now, the good news for Ty Simpson, he's got an unbelievable quality and depth at wide receiver. And that might be the group that could win this game for Alabama, because Oklahoma's secondary, I think, is very good. Maybe not super elite, maybe not top 5, top 10 in college football, but they're very, very good. But if you look at this Alabama receiver group, they're 5 deep with elite talent that can really stretch the field. Start with Jeremy Bernard. He's a really reliable guy, great catch and run, just a really good football player. He's the team leader in catches, team leader in yards, has 7 touchdowns. On critical down and distance, he's usually the guy that Ty Simpson's trying to target. They also have Ryan Williams, who is an explosive deep threat. He's a home run hitter, a big play waiting to happen, and he's capable of breaking the game open with just one snap. And while he's been a little up and down in performance this year, the high side still is as high as anybody in college football. There's a reason why, as a freshman, he was a second-team All-American. And then you have the recent emergence of Isaiah Horton, who's a super physical, big transfer from Miami, who has been very efficient in the red zone and winning those contested catch situations. Don't forget about Lottie Brooks. Don't forget about Rico Scott. And then you can't forget about the likely return of tight end Josh Cuevas, who statistically, the numbers won't necessarily jump out to you, but as far as a reliable safety blanket, he's a top 10 tight end in terms of production. But one area where Alabama must improve is they have too many drops. They have 28 drops this year. That's the 8th most in college football. And the pass catchers, they're the jet engine of this Alabama offense. But the entire jet relies on a fully functioning launch pad. And that's where you need to look at this group holistically, because the big flaw in Alabama's offense, if the passing attack is a highly tuned sports car, well, the run game is a bit of a flat tire. And Alabama's rushing offense is 117th in the FBS. They average just 116 yards a game. That's not just bad. You would think that that would completely omit any team from being in the race to potentially win a national championship. And if you look at the running backs, Jam Miller, he's the guy that leads the team right now in rushing. He has less than 500 yards. And it's kind of, at this point, a bit of an unknown as to whether or not he'll even play in the game. And his presence is significant, not just for what he does carrying the football, but because of protection and the way he can contribute in the passing game. The second string running back is Daniel Hill. Did play well against Oklahoma in the first game, had a couple touchdowns in this game, but he's not necessarily the game breaker that you would expect. He's a big 240-pound back that's going to get 3, 4, 5 yards and maybe carry some defenders with him, especially in the second half of football game. But if you look at their personnel at running back, it's not really about the running back, it's the offensive line and their inability to consistently generate movement against the opposing defense. Alabama averages just 1.16 yards before contact per rush. This is Alabama's offensive line, right? 1.16 yards before contact per rush. That is 105th in college football. So their running game, and they commit to it, they try to do it. Their running game, it's almost as if you're floating in a lake and you're treading water. And that's kind of what their running game is. You're treading water. You spend a lot of energy trying to run the ball. You spend a lot of energy treading water, but you don't really ever go anywhere. So there's a lot of effort being exerted, but there's really no forward momentum. And it's going to be difficult to completely rely on passing concepts in the red zone or in critical third and shorts when there's not a real credible threat of simply handing the ball off and getting 3+ yards. And then the lack of a run game, it kind of makes it even more miraculous that Alabama, their red zone touchdown percentage is in the top 11. So when they get in the red zone, they score touchdowns on 73% of their red zone drives. And to do that without a run game is genuinely remarkable. And the offensive line matchup for Alabama, that's probably the real battle here. Alabama's offensive line is tasked with protecting Ty Simpson against Brent Venables' defensive front. This is an aggressive group. This is a really talented group. And if they can't generate some push in the run game, they have to at least hold up in protection, knowing that Oklahoma is probably going to bring some blitzes. And that's where Oklahoma got them in the last game. They had a strip sack around the right edge. Now, if they fail, then Ty Simpson can probably be in a pretty tough spot there in the backfield trying to find someone open downfield, because he is a guy that can maybe get a little jumpy, get a little jittery. And those blitzes are coming. So can Alabama take advantage of Brent Venables' aggressiveness? Because when you blitz, you void a zone. And Alabama must locate that zone and take advantage of that void in coverage. But it starts with their quarterback playing fearless football, being super decisive, and getting the ball out of his hands on time. If you look at Oklahoma, their defense, their blueprint to success is very simple. Create a bunch of disruption. And if you can create enough disruption, it will lead to suffocation. And under Brent Venables, the defense is a complete machine. They're 7th in the FBS in scoring defense. They give up less than 14 points a game. They're in the top 10 in total defense. And their strength is perfectly aligned to dismantle Alabama's core weakness. And that's the run defense. They ranked 5th in the FBS against the run. They allow just 81 rushing yards a game. They allow under 2.5 yards per carry. They lead the FBS in tackles for loss. So you got to be careful relying too much on the run, because you don't want to get off schedule. They essentially tell Alabama, we are removing your weakest option. So now you have to beat us in a game in which we're going to defend that throw. The other thing they're great at is they're terrific at getting off the field. They're 6th in the FBS in defensive third down conversion percentage. They stop opponents nearly 72% of the time. And this is how you win the time of possession battle without possessing the ball very often. You get off the field. So their defense and the matchups along that defensive line and creating pressure, that's an advantage for Oklahoma going into a game like this. For Oklahoma's offense, there's a huge question mark. What's going on with John Mateer? Because John Mateer, when he got to Oklahoma, was the big portal win. He was everyone's All-American in the first 4 weeks. He was the Heisman Trophy front runner at one point this season, but it hasn't really worked. And the offense has struggled as a result. And their offense, frankly, has become a bit of a liability. They're 78th in scoring right now. They're 91st in total offense. And you look at this dual threat weapon that's John Mateer. At one point, you're thinking this guy is going to be a first-round pick. Well, you look at the numbers, and they don't reflect the excellence that we thought we were going to get from him. He's passed for just over 2,500 yards, thrown 12 touchdowns this year. But the season and the narrative about his season hinges on the injury to his right thumb. He broke his thumb on his throwing hand against Auburn that required mid-season surgery. And since returning from that surgery, the performance has dropped. In the 7 games since he's been back, he's thrown just 4 touchdown passes and he's thrown 7 interceptions. So the injury basically turned Mateer from a finely tuned machine into kind of a slightly sputtering pickup truck at the point right now. The accuracy suffered some. He's put the ball in harm's way a few too many times. That's helped contribute to the -2 turnover margin this year. And against a fairly stout Alabama defense that is top 7 when it comes to defending the pass, Mateer has to play his cleanest game of the year. Now, if you look at where things are for Oklahoma's weaponry, they have really good playmakers. And Alabama's secondary is very, very good. But it all starts with slowing down Isaiah Satania. He is the top receiver for the Sooners. He's got 950 yards nearly on 65 catches and 7 touchdowns. He's a deep threat that can beat you over the top, but he can also break the game open on an underneath throw that he takes at the house like he did against Missouri. They also have Deion Burks, who's got over 500 yards this year, but it always feels when you watch Deion Burks, there's a little bit more in the tank. And maybe it comes out in a game like this. Don't forget about Jaren Kanak, who was a converted linebacker and now starting at tight end. He's been an impact player this year. He's got 500-plus receiving yards himself. He's a critical security blanket for Mateer over the middle, but there were times in which he kind of disappeared from this offense at some point or another. The running backs have gotten better in recent weeks. It started the season with Torrey Blaylock. He's a guy that has done a great job, still the leading rusher right now. But kind of like Alabama, Oklahoma's run game production has not been great. They're 106th in the FBS. It has been better, though, since Xavier Robinson was thrust into the starting lineup just a few games back, and Robinson's averaging over 5 yards per carry. So in a way, they kind of have to rely on John Mateer's mobility for their run game to create some of the problems that it can create. Now, a couple of very important points in this game. Defensive end R. Mason Thomas. That's Oklahoma's defensive end. He's their team leader in sacks, forced fumbles. I'd hope that he'd be back in this game. He got hurt against Tennessee, hurt his hamstring. He played 17 snaps in this game. We haven't seen him since. If he's out, they were able to overcome his absence last time because they have good depth along the defensive line. But if he's in, that significantly increases Oklahoma's ability to generate elite pass rush, especially on those wide defensive ends that get upfield and can use speed to get around the edge. And his presence could lead to those quick, high leverage turnovers from Ty Simpson. So like I said, they've gotten by without him because Taylor Wine's been amazing. Grayson Halton's been amazing. You got 5 or 6 others can all contribute. But this is a defensive line that is so deep and so relentless. They don't just beat you once. They're kind of like a wood chipper. They just continue to apply continuous, violent, and messy pressure. They just chew up the opposing offensive line piece by piece. Now, another angle in this game that is a little bit out there, but worth mentioning because everyone else talks about it, and Ryan Grubb talked about it in the first match. Ryan Grubb has talked a little about how they're going to change everything when it comes to their offensive signals. This is a direct response to people saying that Brent Venables and his staff, they are, quote, elite information gatherers. They anticipate plays and they steal signals. They're great at it, probably the best at it. And guess what? Everyone does it. So it's not frowned upon. It's not a problem. It's a great strength. If you know what's coming, it's a whole heck of a lot easier to call defense. And I think that can at times lead to teams playing a little slower against Oklahoma, huddling a little bit more against Oklahoma. So I'm of the belief that Alabama would be benefited by picking up the tempo just a little bit and not worrying so much about them getting the signals, but really finding a little bit more rhythm offensively as opposed to trying to counter this signal stealing and the information gathering that they're doing on the other side. All right, the big questions in the game. Turnover margin regression. We acknowledge that this is going to be a defensive battle, right? So points are going to be at a premium. It's going to come down to mistakes. It's going to come down to field position. It's going to come down to red zone execution. So question 1, can Alabama stick to its season-long average of +7 in the turnover margin and eliminate the catastrophic errors like a strip sack and a pick 6 that they had last time around? Now, if they do, they probably win because they can potentially, in that case, dominate time of possession, dominate total yards. But if they commit 2 or more turnovers, then it's going to be Oklahoma's ballgame. Question 2, who wins in the red zone? Touchdowns versus field goals, right? Because in the game where points are at a premium, the difference between settling for 3 or getting 7, huge difference, right? Well, Alabama is 11th in the red zone at a touchdown rate of 73%. Oklahoma's defense is 5th in the red zone. They allow touchdowns just 39% of the time. Now, on the other side, Oklahoma's offense is 16th in red zone touchdown rate at 72%. Alabama's defense is 13th in red zone touchdown rate at 50%. So it's great on both sides of the ball. So if it becomes a field goal contest, if you will, because both defenses play amazing, well, that's not good news for Alabama because Oklahoma's kicker, Tate Sandell, is a weapon. He is 23 of 24 this year on field goals, 7 for 7 on field goals of 50 plus. He's the best kicker in college football. And Alabama's special teams have been a liability for some of the year. Connor Talty's just 13 of 20 this year. He's 7 of 10 on kicks inside of 40, and he's 6 of 10 on kicks of 40 plus. Any missed Alabama field goal could be momentum and potentially points for the Sooners, just like it was last time around when he missed a 36-yarder. It would have potentially given them the win. And then number 3, who creates the most hidden yardage? Now, the hidden yardage battle is critical in a really tight, low-scoring game. And there's a few things that contribute to hidden yardage. One is penalties. Well, Alabama is 23rd in penalty yards a game with 42 yards a game. Oklahoma is 107th in penalty yards a game at 62 yards per game. You're thinking, well, hang on, that's not that big a deal. And it's 20 yards. How big a deal is that? Well, 20 yards, potentially 2 first downs, that could be significant in a game like this. And what about the return game? Well, Isaiah Satania, he's got 5 punt returns that have gone for 20 plus yards. That's top 8 in college football. Just one might be all they need. That's what they got last time, and it led to points that could have been the difference. So it could be a big punt return, a big kick return. It could be a critical holding penalty that wipes out a big run. It could be a defensive pass interference on 3rd and 10 that extends a drive. Any of those situations could potentially swing the game. So this rematch, the battle between Alabama's self-correction with turnovers and Oklahoma's offensive growth, there are some advantages on both sides. Alabama's got a really good defense going against an inconsistent offense, and Alabama's got a somewhat inconsistent offense and one-dimensional offense going against an elite defense. However, Alabama's offense, while inconsistent, has at times shown me the ability to move the ball with more consistency than the Oklahoma's offense has shown me up to this point. So I think it's going to be a defensive war. I think it's going to be super physical. I think it's going to be super tense, and it could very easily come down to which team makes the biggest mistake. I think Alabama will avoid the mistakes they made last time, and they will win this game 24-20 and advance to the Rose Bowl. It might be the most intense and statistically balanced matchup of the entire first round when the 10th-ranked Miami Hurricanes head to College Station to take on the 7th-ranked Texas A&M Aggies. This game will be December 20th, noon Eastern time at Kyle Field. Look, this is a trench war waiting to happen, and the betting line will tell you A&M is like a 3.5-point home favorite over the Hurricanes with a total around 51.5. Well, why is it 3.5? Because I think advanced models will tell you that these two teams are neck and neck on talent alone. The 3.5 points is basically the quantified value of what Kyle Field presents. And the Aggies, guess what? 7-0 at home this year. I mean, we know that this is going to be a difficult environment for Miami to go into, but the fundamental conflict is very clear. Miami's got a super elite defense. Texas A&M has a super dynamic offense. So this is going to be amazing. To win this game, you have to win the numbers. You got to win the matchups. So let's dive into it, shall we? We'll start with the quarterback duel because this might be a huge part of this game. And this is a delicious contrast in styles. First, you got Carson Beck, who his current form has been excellent. He actually finished the regular season by completing an astronomically impressive 74.7% of his passes. That was the second best in college football. He's got over 3,000 yards, got 25 touchdowns. What's interesting is a lot of his throws are kind of on the underneath. He averages just 6.88 air yards per attempt. That is 118th. So his success is built on quick, accurate reads, high-level execution, kind of paper cut you to death as they work their way down the field. And that's essential because the defense he's about to face is brutal. A big key for Texas A&M would be to pressure him and to kind of get him off his game, because when Carson Beck feels heat, his production has and it likely will regress. Now on the other side, Texas A&M's Marcel Reed, he wants to extend plays. I mean, he's amazing when it comes to creating and buying time and doing things with his legs that most quarterbacks can't do. He's got nearly 3,000 yards. He's got 466 rushing yards, and his style is completely different from that of Carson Beck. He wants to hold it a little bit longer. His average time to throw is 2.89 seconds. That is 107th in college football. So he's perfectly fine holding the ball to allow plays to break down and then either take a deep shot, buy time, use scramble drill, or just take off running. He is 14th in college football with 336 scramble yards. So he's very good taking off and creating with his legs. And it kind of forces the defense to be a little careful when taking off, because Reed is a bit like a roaring and kind of an untamed waterfall where he's got tremendous natural power and beauty, and there's something amazing about watching him, but the energy hasn't necessarily been channeled just yet. It creates some chaos, it creates some fun, and it creates energy, but also at the same time, that energy could be going in a bunch of different directions. Now we'll start with Miami and their offense that's designed by Shannon Dawson, who's a very physically imposing group with tremendous playmakers and skill on the outside. On the outside, it starts with Malachi Toney. He leads the team with 970 receiving yards. He's electric. He's by far and away the go-to guy. He should get no less than 12 to 15 touches in this game. Now, he's complemented by other very quality pieces in Keelan Marion and CJ Daniels. And these are the guys that Carson Beck's going to be looking or to create some of those chunk plays. Now, the running backs, it's a good group. Mark Fletcher is the bell cow. He's got 685 rushing yards. He's healthy again, but the explosiveness and the emergence of Gerard Pringle cannot be overlooked. And that duo, it's crucial because Miami's philosophy is very much run heavy. They lean heavily on their physical, strong offensive line to execute both runs between the tackles, the occasional outside zone scheme, and success on the ground is going to be very important for Carson Beck to maintain his high level of efficiency. And A&M, they've been a little susceptible on run plays at times this year. They've given up 19 runs that went for 20 plus yards. That is 103rd in college football. On the other side, Texas A&M's weapons are amazing. They have two guys right now that both have over 800 receiving yards. Casey Concepcion, he's the primary threat. He leads the team with 886 receiving yards, and he has been amazing. I mean, absolutely amazing this year, not just as a receiver, but also in the return game. Just get him the ball and watch what he does with it. Now, he will be the main beneficiary, too, of Marcel Reed kind of scrambling and seeing guys break open and potentially creating a deep shot if the pocket were to collapse. Opposite him is Mario Craver, who isn't too far behind. He's got 825 yards. You add in Ashton Bethel-Roman, has really rounded out the trio with his emergence the last 5 or 6 weeks. And this is a group that does a lot of damage after the catch. They are 4th in the FBS in yards after catch per reception. They average over 7.5 yards after the catch every time they catch the ball. That's a ridiculously impressive number, I might add. Their running back, Ruben Owens. Owens is their leading rusher right now. However, his role has become even more magnified because A&M the last few weeks has been without Le'Veon Moss. Now, I'm cautiously optimistic that Le'Veon Moss will be back for the Aggies in this game. If not, then a lot of the workload will be on Owens' shoulders. They do have some other guys that they'll mix in there, and they'll be running against a statistically elite run defense for Miami. They're 7th in the country when it comes to stopping the run. Now, key number one in this game is the matchup between the Texas A&M offensive line and the Miami defensive line, because Miami's defensive line, if I were to describe it in just one word, they are violent. They feature a dual threat wrecking crew of Ruben Bain on one side, Akeem Mesidor on the other. I think it's the best defensive end tandem in the FBS. They've combined to go for over 100 pressures, and they are the reason why Miami is in the top 7 against the run and why they are great when it comes to affecting the opposing quarterback. The good news for A&M is that they counter with the, quote, Maroon Goons. That's their offensive line. And this unit has been superb in protection. They allow a ridiculous 3.2% sack rate. They've allowed just 8 sacks all year. That's top 10 in college football. So this is a contest between kind of volume versus resilience. Can Miami's relentless pressure break through a unit that almost never gives up a negative play? And I think the big key for Miami is not to rush the quarterback and sack Marcel Reed. That's probably not the primary goal, in my opinion. I think the success of Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor will not be measured by sacks, but more by how do you contain Reed. It's kind of like herding the cat. Now, when the pocket collapses, Reed's probably not going to take a sack. He could scramble. There's a reason why he scrambled for over 330 yards. But if these edge rushers lose their pass rush integrity, if they rush wildly, if they're creating kind of an escape hatch for Marcel Reed, he'll take off and he'll kill you. That's why the mandate is just cage him in, herd the cat, compress the pocket, maintain and capture the edge, and force Marcel Reed into predictable escape lanes. And when that pocket collapses around him, he can get a little bit uncomfortable. Now, one area to watch in this game, and it's been complicated in the back end defensively for Miami, is the absence of their star nickel, Keontae Scott. At this point, he's questionable. They're hopeful he can return, but at this point, it's very much TBD. And his value is immense. He's got 44 tackles, 3 sacks. He's great in coverage, especially in the slot. So if Scott is out, Miami loses one of their best chess pieces for blitzing and disguising coverage. So the secondary is going to have to cover for a while. When you're playing against Marcel Reed, we talked about how he'll hold it for 2.9 seconds. It's a long time. Having that most versatile defender there, that hybrid defender there off the edge is very, very important. And playing against Marcel Reed without Keontae Scott is kind of like fighting a fire with a compromised hose. It reduces defensive flexibility where the opponent might be at his very best. The second key in this game is third down. Anytime you're playing against Texas A&M, one of the keys will always be third down because A&M, their best weapon on their entire team, outside of maybe their wide receivers, is how good they are in their third down packages. It's like a wall is put up at the first down line. They are number one nationally in third down defense. They hold opponents to just 22.4% conversion. They are the masters in forcing offenses into third and long and then shutting them down. Well, how do they do that? Well, they actually have increased their aggressiveness on first and second down. It leads to a lost yardage play, and now you're probably living in 3rd and 7+. Because inside 3rd and 3, they're pretty human. But once you get to 3rd and 4 or more, that's when they're lethal. So Miami's counter strategy to this is that Carson Beck must use that high-level completion percentage on first and second down, and they must use Shannon Dawson's creativity to make sure they avoid those 3rd and long situations. And if Miami can consistently force A&M into 3rd and 3 or less, then Beck and company can kind of neutralize that wall because A&M gives up 74% of their third downs of 3 or less. That is 121st. But on 3rd and 4+, they give up 15%, which is by far the best in college football. So if you get stuck in long yard situations, A&M will kill you. If you're constantly living in 3rd and 7+, you might as well just punt on third down. A big reason why A&M is so good on third downs because their defensive front is unbelievable. Cassius Howell is a name you need to know in this game. Double-digit sack guy. They do a great job of overloading protections, and they blitz from all over the place. They will attack your tendencies, and they will wear you out. So here lies a phenomenal matchup in it as well. I just mentioned Cassius Howell. Well, what if he's one-on-one with Francis Maui-Noa? That's the right tackle for Miami. We all know Miami's offensive line is amazing. We know Maui-Noa is the key cog. He is the anchor of an offensive line that allows pressure on less than 17% of Carson Beck's dropbacks. That is number one in college football. And potentially the most volatile factor in this game is turnovers. That's key number 3. Both teams carry a decent amount of turnover risk. Miami has 11 turnovers this year, but 6 of them came in their 2 losses. A&M, they have 16 turnovers this year, but 6 came in their worst 2 games of the year against South Carolina and against Texas. So in losses or poor performances, these teams are a little bit more mistake prone. And if you look at A&M, the way they've played in 3 of their last 4 games have been a little bit sloppier with football. They were -3, -2, and -2 in 3 of their last 4 games leading into the college football playoffs. So that is something that is worth noting for sure. So the team that kind of avoids the catastrophic turnover, that achieves a net turnover of +1, +2 or better, they're going to have field position, they're going to have scoring opportunities, and that might be massive in a game like this. The 3 big questions that will determine the outcome. Number 1, can Miami's defense execute a containment strategy against the front for Texas A&M and against Marcel Reed? That defensive front, can they pressure and herd the cat of Marcel Reed without preventing him taking off, creating with his own feet? Question 2, can Carson Beck keep the Miami offense on schedule to avoid the third down packages that A&M will throw at him? And Carson Beck and this offensive line, they need to consistently win on first and second down so they're not in those 3rd and longs when that number 1 ranked third down defense is out there attacking them. And then question 3, which QB will avoid the critical mistake? Whatever team avoids the self-inflicted wounds, they're probably going to be in a great position to win the game. Look, the structural advantage are amazing here. Both teams have amazing defensive lines. Both teams are extremely well coached on both sides of the ball. Both teams have amazing offensive lines. Both teams have high-level quarterback play when they're on, and they have low-level quarterback play when those guys are off. They all have great playmakers, and this game will be a real treat to call. It's an honor to be heading back to my home state of Texas to call the first ever college football playoff game in Kyle Field. I'll be on the call alongside Sean McDonough, Molly McGrath, and Taylor McGregor. Well, if off-the-field drama is the thing for you, then I got the game for you. Maybe the most dramatic storyline of the opening round of the college football playoff is the number 6 Ole Miss Rebels hosting the number 11 Tulane Green Wave in a rematch of a game that was played in September. But probably the most bizarre coaching situation in playoff history. I'm not sure it'll ever be topped, that's for sure. Ole Miss is 11-1, most regular season wins in school history. First ever trip to the college football playoff. Tulane, the American Conference champion, dancing for the very first time. They've been great over the last 3 years with a record of 32-10. This is a program-defining opportunity for both sides. There's a bit of a revenge narrative. So if you missed the first meeting on September 22nd, I'm sure a handful of you did. Here's what you need to know. Ole Miss won that game 45-10. They dominated the line of scrimmage. They went for about 548 in the game on offense. John Summerall, the head coach at Tulane, who is still coaching in this game, admitted that his team lacked the necessary, quote, mental toughness to respond to the adversity of the first outing. This isn't just a playoff game. This is a chance for Tulane to kind of prove they've grown from that embarrassment. But one of the big keys in this game is the circus that now surrounds the coaching situation. So remove X's and O's. Let's just talk about the drama on the sideline. So start with Tulane. Summerall, this is potentially his last game for Tulane. He accepted the head coaching job to become the next guy at Florida, but he's staying on to finish the job that he started. So this is a, quote, win one for the Gipper scenario. A lot of emotion there for Tulane. But on the other side, Lane Kiffin left for LSU. Ole Miss acted quickly, promoted defensive coordinator Pete Golding to become their head coach. He's an amazing recruiter, a proven defensive mind, but it's his first head coaching job. It's his debut in a do-or-die college football playoff environment. I mean, this game is wild. And look, Tulane, they're fueled by that finite emotional surge, while Ole Miss is hoping that their overwhelming talent and the defensive structure will provide enough stability to navigate Pete Golding's relative inexperience. So it's crazy, wild. So if you're into like drama, this is a good game for you. Look, if you're looking for a statistical mismatch, you might as well start with Ole Miss's offense. They are amazing. Their quarterback, Trinidad Chambliss, has taken over since week 3. He's a huge reason why the Rebels finished number 3 in the FBS in total offense and passing offense. Transfer from the D2 level, low risk, high reward passer. Finished the season with over 3,000 yards, 18 touchdowns against just 3 interceptions, and completes over 65%. And we got a perfect snapshot of where he's at the last time out against Mississippi State. He was surgical in that performance, went for nearly 360, completed 23 of 34, had 4 touchdowns. And this is a quarterback that's starting to peak, I feel like, at the right time. He's averaging over 350 a game. He's demonstrating complete mastery of this offense. And one thing of note, though, there is usually about a 1-quarter lull, and we've seen it multiple times this year, where maybe for a quarter he's just not really at his best. Maybe the 4th quarter against Georgia, middle of the game against Mississippi State. There have been at times maybe a touch of streakiness in his game, and when he is a little bit off, if he's a little bit off, that must be a time when Tulane has to attack. He's got a lot of weapons at his disposal. Trey Wallace is their leading receiver. He finished the season with 46 for 719 and a few touchdowns. He's a guy that they will try to throw hitches to, fades to all the time. Deuce Alexander is the speedster. We've seen a lot of explosiveness from him. He had 2 for 94 against Mississippi State. They'll also give it to him on jet sweeps, and you have a great slot receiver in Caden Lee and a big physical, big-bodied receiver that can win those contested catches in Dejon Stribling. The matchup nightmare is Daquan Wright, their tight end. They'll move him around. He's a very good weapon at tight end too. The biggest difference, though, between the 2024 Rebels and the 2025 Rebels is what they have at running back. That's Kejuan Lacey. He's a Doak Walker Award finalist, and he broke the Ole Miss single-season record with 1,279 yards on 258 carries and 20 rushing touchdowns. And his presence prevents Tulane or any team that's playing against Ole Miss from simply just dropping 7 into coverage. So he can consistently create edges. He consistently get out the gate. He can run downhill. He is awesome. And he is what makes this Ole Miss offense complete. This is a championship caliber unit that is built to explode when a defense is not ready to play. So for Tulane to win the game, they have to basically steal this thing. They probably are not going to win the yardage battle. They have to win the turnover battle. They have to win field position. They got to win the short yardage battle. We'll start with their quarterback, Jake Retzlaff. And Retzlaff has done a great job this year. Over 2,800 yards to the air, 14 touchdowns. But his real impact is done when he carries the football. He's got 600 plus on the ground and 16 rushing touchdowns. He's their primary threat when they get inside the red zone. And those 16 rushing touchdowns lead the FBS among quarterbacks. And if you look at the American Championship game against North Texas, it kind of shows you what he's all about. He threw for just 145 on 59% completion, but he was a huge factor in the run game. 15 carries for 49 yards and 2 touchdowns. So if a play breaks down, his legs can keep the drive alive, but they need more than just Retzlaff to be able to win this game. They need Shaz Preston, their top weapon at wide receiver. He leads the team with nearly 600 yards. They need him to win contested catches. They need him to be out there on third down to extend drives. He is their most reliable contested catch option as well. He has 7 this year. And there's 3 other receivers, and Anthony Brown-Stevens, Amari Hayes, both have over 400 yards. And then their running back, Jamari McClure, when Retzlaff runs, they kind of need a reliable tailback to lean on, and McClure has been that guy the last few weeks. He stepped up big in the in the American Championship game. He carried it 22 times for 121 yards and 1 touchdown. So if Tulane's going to have any hope of winning this game, the time of possession battle could be important, which means McClure and Retzlaff, they're going to need to punish Ole Miss's run defense, which is in the top 30 nationally. Now, the lifeblood of what the Tulane Green Wave do is they create turnovers. That's what they do. They rank 11th in the FBS. They are plus 10 in the turnover margin. This is not an optional statistic. This is their entire mechanism for a possible upset. If they can get a pick 6 or a fumble recovery inside the 20, they can compress the score differential instantaneously. So that'll be interesting, worth watching for sure. And we've already talked about the Ole Miss attack. This is a ridiculously good group. Their passing offense is number 3, over 300 plus per game. Well, Tulane's pass defense is 123rd. They give up over 250 a game. The crazy thing is they give up 67% completion rate to the opponent. And Ole Miss's passing offense, they're like a nuclear-powered submarine, and Tulane's secondary is kind of like a dinghy with a leaky hull, right? And offensive coordinator Charlie Weiss Jr. knows this. He will attack the edges. He will try to go vertical. He will try to score quickly. He will try to establish some psychological dominance. And then for Ole Miss's defensive front, it's going to have to be some relentless pressure. Their defense is going to have to harass Jake Retzlaff, prevent him from using his legs, and the pressure is going to have to come from all over the place. And the D-line remains a strength for Ole Miss. It starts with Xavier Harris and Will Eccles. It's an excellent duo up front. They do lack a little bit of depth, but they do have quality pieces on the edge, like Princewell Uman Mielen, who's got 6.5 sacks. He's complemented by Cam Franklin, who's contributed quite a bit himself. So the matchup of fresh defensive linemen going against a Tulane offensive line is a battle that must be won by Ole Miss. Because if Tulane can't protect Retzlaff for long enough to make a read, they got no chance. If Retzlaff can escape, he can turn negative play into a positive play. Well, Ole Miss rushers, they're trained to prevent that. Another big statistical battle here is third downs. The overall game flow kind of hinges on third downs. Well, Ole Miss is great. They convert 46% of the time. That's top 28. Ole Miss's Tulane's defense, they allow just 40% third down conversion this year. That's 80th in the FBS. If Tulane can't improve that 40% stop rate, Ole Miss will put together controlling drives that'll limit Tulane's offensive possessions, exhaust their defense, so that'll be big. Couple key questions in this game. One, will Ole Miss avoid self-sabotage? The -2 turnover margin for Ole Miss. Tulane's going to be hunting turnovers. That's what they do. So Chambliss and Lacey, they need to play a clean game. If they do, they'll win the game. If they turn the ball over twice or more, you're basically giving Tulane potentially 14 points. That could cancel out the overall talent differential. So Ole Miss must focus intently on ball security. Question 2, can Tulane steal a possession or two with a 4th down conversion? Now, Tulane is not the most aggressive group when it comes to going for it on 4th down. They go for it on 4th down just 20% of the time. That is 105th in college football. But when they've gone, they've been pretty good. They convert 63% of those 4th down attempts. But Ole Miss's defense is great on 4th down. Just 36% allowed on those 4th downs. So Tulane, I think in this game, you got to be hyper aggressive when it comes to, hey, if we don't got it in 4th down and 3rd down, but it's 4th and 3 on the other side of the 50, they're going to have to go, because punting it to Ole Miss, playing field possession, that's not going to win. That's not going to win for them at all. And then question 3, can Tulane play cleaner football? They have a lack of discipline that's a bit of a fatal flaw in a playoff game. They are 128th in the FBS in penalties. They're 124th in penalty yards per game. They give up 66 yards a game in penalties. So that can't happen. They must play clean. They must play smart football. Look, Tulane enters with a lot of emotional motivation, the revenge narrative, the departing coach, the power of the turnover margin. But Ole Miss is just a completely different level. And Chambliss is playing at a different level. And while Pete Golding, yes, there might be a bit of a learning curve for him when it comes to being a head coach, the talent gap is just too significant. And I think the Rebels will handle their business and punch their ticket to the Sugar Bowl to take on the Georgia Bulldogs. I like Ole Miss to win this game 41-20. I think they cover there in Oxford, Mississippi. Now, what might be the most lopsided matchup in the history of the college football playoff first round, but was it lopsided when David took his slingshot and sunk a rock into Goliath's forehead? Was it lopsided when Rocky knocked out Apollo at the end of Rocky 2? Was it lopsided when Danny O'Shea's Little Giants beat Kevin O'Shea's Pee Wee Football Cowboys? Yes, and if there's anything we learned from that last example, based on the halftime speech delivered by Danny O'Shea, we know all it takes is one time. One time. They might play 100. This team might win 99, but all it takes is one time. The number 5 Oregon Ducks host the number 12 James Madison Dukes. That'll be at Autzen Stadium. This will be December 20th. In prime time. Look, first ever college football playoff contest there in Eugene. This is an amazing. It's like a narrative out of a movie. Oregon is the Death Star, speed, depth, power 4, firepower. James Madison is this upstart Rebel Alliance, the Sun Belt champion, but they're built on defensive suffocation, controlling time of possession. And the odds makers really like the Ducks here. Understandably so. So let's try to figure out a strategy that James Madison can use to potentially make this kind of an intriguing game. We will start with the Ducks. Oregon's offense isn't just good, but it's balanced. It's surgical. They can beat you with speed. They can beat you with power. They score 37 points a game. That's top 10. And Dante Moore, it starts and ends with him. I mean, he has had a phenomenal season. I think he's playing as well as he's played all season right now. Of course, he came to Oregon with 5-star potential, but I do think that he's a guy that has played well above what was expected of him coming into the season. Over 72% completion, unbelievable efficiency, 2,700 yards, 24 touchdowns. The most critical stat, though, is the ball security. He has just 6 interceptions this season, which is a big stride from where he was at UCLA, where he had 9 interceptions on 100 less attempts. So he's learned how to protect the football, and that to me is very, very important. It's surgical precision when you watch this young man. Just elite accuracy, minimizing mistakes. He's especially good off play action. He's incredible down the field. He completes 50% of his throws that travel 20-plus yards downfield. That's number 1 in the FBS. He's also been sacked just 12 times, which brings us to Oregon's best weapon. And to me, I think it's their ability to run the football. Their offensive line is outstanding. They don't give up pressure. Their top 7 group as far as pressure given up. They are kind of the foundation that allows Dante Moore to operate with a lot of comfort. And they do an amazing job for their running backs. And their running backs are ridiculous. I mean, this is a devastating committee of running backs. This is not a stable of backs. This is like a conveyor belt. When one gets tired, they swap in the next one, and the defense won't even notice that the serial number changed. I mean, the production is just always the same. You have the veteran consistency of Noah Whittington. You have the true freshman star in Jordan Davison. De'Aaron Hill has amazing speed. So this is power forward depth. When one guy goes down, the next freshman is already punching the ball into the end zone. And their rushing attack is in the top 14 nationally. It might be tested. More on that here in just a bit. But before we get to that, let's talk about their wideouts. I think it's a good group to work with. It started, at least beginning of the year, DeCorian Moore and Gary Bryant Jr. Now, there's strong potential for both these guys to potentially be back for the first round matchup. That'd be huge. These guys have been banged up down the stretch. They've been able to kind of weather the injuries, though, because of the emergence of Malik Benson, who stepped right up in their absence and now leads the team in receiving, and Kenyon Sadiq, who I think is the toughest matchup in all of college football from a tight end standpoint. They are third nationally in plays of 20 yards or more with 82. This is an explosive group with elite speed. They can score on any snap. And they have the ultimate counter to the methodical style that James Madison tries to play with. So it's very, very difficult. Now, we'll say this about James Madison. I think when you watch him, you're probably a little more impressed than I think the outside world realizes. They have a pretty good recipe to make a game like this very competitive. They win by taking the ball and kind of taking the fight to you. Now, in order for them to be competitive in this game, they must adopt the mentality of a swarm of hornets and not a charging bull. You have to kind of hit from a million different spots, because if you try to attack Oregon head on, it's going to be very difficult. So their formula hinges on two things. One, an elite defense, and two, a commitment to clock control. Now, James Madison's defense has metrics in the G5 that look amazing. They are legitimately elite. They are number 2 right now in the country when it comes to rush defense. They hold opponents to just 2.7 yards per carry and just 76 yards per game. So this is the pillar of their entire plan. Now, in reality, though, they've kind of only sailed in calm and very familiar waters. They haven't seen the Cat 4 storm that is coming with Oregon. So it's a different animal that they'll be facing, but their defensive line is anchored by some quality pieces. Sahir West, who, by the way, is 6'4", 270. He leads the team with 7 sacks. Now, West is their most disruptive force, and he has to have the game of his life to somehow affect Dante Moore, affect Oregon's offensive line. But the other thing about James Madison, they're not overly undersized up front. So that kind of gives them a fighting chance. They have some big bodies up there. They might be not the longest guys in the world, but they have a guy that's, 310, 301, 295, one that's 348. So they do have some size up front. The other thing they're great at is they're great on third down. They are 5th nationally in third down defense, meaning they don't often allow teams to extend drives. They're disciplined, and they very rarely make mistakes. As far as what JMU's offense is going to bring to the table, they have to be their best defense too. Their job is not to be explosive. They need to master the clock. They need to give Oregon as few possessions as possible. The good news is that's what they've done all year. They are number 2 nationally in time of possession. They average possessing the ball for 34 minutes and 5 seconds every single game. So this is the mechanism that can potentially eliminate the talent gap that exists between Oregon and JMU. Now, the way they're going to control the clock is through their star running back, Wayne Knight, who's got over 1,260 yards. He's got 9 touchdowns. He's got to be really effective, and they need to have 15-play drives that take 8 minutes off the clock. One of the question marks is their quarterback, Alonze Barnett. Now, Barnett, he has managed the offense pretty well, but there's some limitations to his game, and he had probably the worst game of the season in their only matchup against a P4 opponent, and that was Louisville. He had just 102 yards passing and 2 rushing yards when you remove the sacks, and he had 4 sacks in that game. So if Oregon can kind of force JMU off the run and in obvious passing situations, well, the Duke's ceiling through the air just isn't high enough to likely create a lot of opportunities against Oregon's secondary. So the 3 keys in this game. Question 1. Can Oregon bust through the JMU defensive front? Now, this is the ultimate test. It's power 4 talent against the G5 scheme. James Madison's been great up to this point, but if they can't somehow contain this deep rushing attack to, say, 3.5 per carry, it's going to be very tough for them to win this game. So Oregon's offensive line, they must dictate the terms of engagement. They got to find ways to sustain their 246 rushing yards a game. If they can successfully create big plays on the ground, then they'll have everything available to them. Quick passes, screens, play action, explosive plays. It could lead to a blowout if James Madison can't control the line of scrimmage to an extent. Question 2, can James Madison control the clock and shrink the game? Number 2 nationally, time of possession. Mentioned that. So their game plan isn't complicated. They want to be boring. They want to break your will. They want to be brilliant. So they're trying to win the game 9-6. Now that's where they want this thing to go. And they want the game-winning touchdown to be a 6-yard plunge that takes 12 plays and 8 minutes off the clock. Now, Iowa used a very similar plan with success in their matchup in the regular season against the Ducks. So can the Dukes slow it down and shrink the game? Question 3, can JMU keep Oregon out of the end zone when they get in the red zone? James Madison's only realistic path to a upset or to a cover is by forcing Oregon to settle for field goals as opposed to touchdowns. And that's going to be big. Now, Oregon's overall offensive red zone touchdown percentage is pretty good. They score touchdowns on nearly 70% of their red zone penetrations. It's 30th, so it's pretty good. And we saw it completely vanish in their only loss this year. They scored 0 touchdowns on red zone penetration. So Oregon, however, at home, man, they're great at scoring. So the deafening noise and the energy of Autzen Stadium, their efficiency is much better at home. So Oregon's got to be much better. They're going to be much better. Jamie's got to make every play. They have to make every single play. And then question 4, will the coaching exits on either side serve as a distraction? Both teams are dealing with some movement. James Madison, their head coach, Bob Chesney, is leaving for UCLA. He said he's committed to coaching through the playoff. So the team needs to execute perfect, turnover-free, manage the external noise, put all the pressure back on Oregon. But they're not without a couple of challenges there as well. Will Stein, their OC, is leaving to become the head coach of Kentucky. And their DC, Tosh Lupoy, he's heading to Cal at the end of the postseason run. So they're both balancing kind of a similar challenge. So we know the matchup is very tough. We know the Duke's strategy will be sound. You know they'll be put in a good position. But the game will become a game of attrition. And Oregon, I think, is just better built for a game of this magnitude. I have a ton of confidence in an Oregon victory. I do not have a ton of confidence in an Oregon cover. I think James Madison will battle in this game, but eventually Oregon will pull away. I think Oregon wins this game 31-14 and punches their ticket to the quarterfinals. That'll do it for us here at Always College Football. Continue to encourage you to check back with us. We'll be doing previews. We'll be doing recaps. We'll be doing takeaways throughout the postseason. We know you guys are looking forward to these games as much as we are. And we continue to hope that all you guys are celebrating college football. As we move into the games, time to celebrate college football. We got bowl games. We got things to be excited about. We're just getting started in what should be a great 5-week run into the national championship. So for all of us here at ACF, for Mark, Jake, Jack, the other Jack intern, Sam, I'm Greg. We hope you have an amazing day. And remember, it's always college football. Hey guys, it's Greg McElroy. Thanks for watching Always College Football. Make sure you like, rate, and subscribe to ESPN's YouTube channel and wherever you listen to your podcasts.